So this is Ruben Smiley coming at you live with some news updates. So things are really heating up in the world right now, and on my phone's ringing, and everyone just wants a piece of me. They're saying, Ruben, when are we going to get some commentary on current events from you? And I'm like, well, I need some news. I need some real news, and people are just obsessing over the news. But now there's some news. So I'm watching the news, and I am watching CNN, and there's breaking news, and they're talking about it. So I'm just going to give the commentary that everyone's been asking for. So right now, a lady is talking, and she has darker skin and straight hair that is slightly curled. And let's listen to her for a second. What Trump said was false. So I doubt that he's going to come out here. Okay, so she doubts that he's going to come out here. And she's talking about Obama now. Talking to Donald Trump. On the Hill as well, they're trying to get to the bottom of this too. Okay, now she's referencing the Hill, which is a slang term for the other branches of government.
Jeffrey, how do you see it, Jeffrey?
Well, I mean,
that was Wolf Blitzer talking, and now they're talking to a guy named Jeff who's on the television.
How you get a wiretap, either in the national security area.
Okay, so they're talking about wiretaps. I know a lot about this. Okay, so we're going to turn off the news for a second, or at least just walk further away from the television so that you can hear me better and not as much of the news. So wiretapping is when you take someone's phone and you start listening in using devices that kind of hack the phone, and that's illegal. Let's go back to the news.
That will be relatively easy to find, or they will not exist, meaning the wiretap doesn't exist.
Okay, so they're saying the wiretap doesn't exist. So it looks like this story is developing really fast, and that they're starting to get some conclusions. And now they're doing a wide angle, and there's also a white woman now, and she has intense eyes, and we're going to listen to her.
The tweet storm. The president, of course, could have picked up the phone.
There's something in her nose that's kind of coming out.
Any head of the executive branch agencies and gotten answers.
But she doesn't know.
So the notion that he would bring these allegations to the public without first knowing the factual basis is a little bit surprising, and has aides really scrambling to come up with answers.
So she just kind of stole my thunder a little bit. She was doing a little commentary herself, but that's okay because I'm kind of into equal opportunity, and no one should at all be offended by any of my thoughts about women. Wolf Blitzer, on the other hand, is talking over her, so he's rude and is not good. So there's new info coming, but there is a commercial now. And it's an advertisement for something called Tresiba. Tresiba. And that there was a sign in green that said Tresiba, and they kind of did a freeze frame on 3 chefs who look healthy. And that's the kitty cat. That's one of my kitties. I have 5 of them. Injection site reactions may occur. Tell your prescriber about. So now he's just kind of whispering all the adverse reactions you could potentially have to Tresiba. And there is a black man carrying out a toy bike, and his entire family is coming, and there's one grown boy and one tiny boy who's now rocking on the bike, and now they're going back to the chefs and they're taking notes, and now a lot of shots are coming. And I guess commercials aren't the news, so I could probably talk a little bit about other things for a second while the commercials are happening. So right now what you should know is that Donald Trump is the president, and he's making a lot of decisions about where our country is going, and he's a Republican, so that means he wants the country to go in a Republican direction, which is cool by me because, as you know, I endorse free market capitalism, and it's kind of one of my favorite philosophies just in general. I think the logic is just beautiful, and if something is beautiful, then that means that it's in line with cosmic principles, and that means that it's true, or at least it's real. It might at least be real. Well, it's definitely real, at least. So that's where I stand on that. Hi, Kitty. Hi. And so what Donald Trump is trying to do, I think, is he's trying to use his executive power to implement certain changes in America that may or may not be constitutional. So a lot of the people in the judiciary branch, which is another branch of government, they're going to start kind of like making their decisions about Donald Trump's decisions. Excuse me, I had a little bit of phlegm in my throat, which happens sometimes when you talk a lot, which I'm starting to learn through this podcast. So you learn so much, even when you're learning, because I'm learning.
Every month on your mortgage.
Where was I?
Here to help you save your money. Why Quicken Loans? The home loan experts at Quicken Loans fully understand the HARP guidelines. We'll work with you to understand your specific circumstances and strive to find the financial solution that's best for you. Then we'll guide you through each step of the mortgage refinance process to make sure that it's both simple and easy. And for 7 years in a row now, JD Power...
So this is a really long commercial, and I don't think the news is going to come back on for another hot minute. So I'm going to just kind of keep throwing out these ideas I have about Donald Trump. So one, Donald Trump is a businessman, and all of us, if you're listening to this podcast, you're likely a business person yourself, even if you don't realize it. And I want to help you understand that there's no stigma in going into business. One important thing about business is that when you do it, it's hard. And when you work hard, you're just kind of burning through stigma like a fat mom on a treadmill or a health rider who's on her way to becoming a hot mom. And she becomes a hot mom. And she's just banging her husband or banging her neighbors or whoever she's going to bang, depending on her marital status or however they roll. If they're poly, that's cool. But, you know, people kind of back then, like if you're in your 40s, you might not call it poly. You might say that you're swingers, or you might say that you have an open marriage. It's more amongst the youth movements that they believe in polyamory, which is the concept that's somewhat Marxist, even though it's pretty much the same thing as open relationships and cheating. But in this case, there's kind of more of like a worldview, so it's kind of like a cult thing. And I wrote a lot about this the other day in my thing, www.zanga.com/RubenSmiley. And right now there's an insurance commercial, and they just cut to the news. But we'll talk about insurance too in a second, because that's relevant.
Let me get back to you. You're a former NSA lawyer, National Security Agency lawyer. The leak of these latest CIA documents by WikiLeaks. Okay, so they're not actually getting to the breaking news thing that they alluded to before the commercial break. So that's a common thing. In the news, they kind of get y'all excited that something big's going to happen after the commercial. So they kind of just make sure like you stay there watching TV. But that's a classic move. And, you know, I personally don't enjoy being on the receiving end, but if you're trying to keep your business strong, it's just one of those things you have to do, you know, like when I was touring with Santana, that was kind of back when I was just starting to get known, and boy, it was hard to travel. You don't make a lot of money, so you're always just up there on stage saying, buy our merch, because if they don't buy the merch, then you're not going to be on tour anymore. So it's really important to direct people to your product or your advertising, and that's in the business book too. So Wolf Blitzer is going to talk a little more. The White House today explained the difference, Sean Spicer, and I'll play the clip once again, between why Donald Trump is... A hyperlink will pop up that tells you who Sean Spicer is. Why he was praising it then, and now they're condemning WikiLeaks.
There is a big difference between...
That was a long lag, by the way. That silence, that was just them sitting there waiting for this clip to come on. So that was messy journalism.
Hillary Clinton and his thoughts on her on a personal nature and the leaking of classified information.
Okay, so Sean Spicer right now is lying. It's kind of hard for you to tell because you can't see what his eyes are doing, but they're doing things that liars do with their eyes.
Last year by a lot of Democrats when it came to leaks is interesting that we're hearing not as much.
Actually, on second thought, I'm not sure if he's lying because his eyes are doing another thing that people who are telling the truth do. These kind of things are hard to tell. Anyway, a news flash shouldn't last too long, so I guess we'll just kind of wait on a cliffhanger for a while, and maybe some more details will come up, and then we'll do kind of like an update. So that was this update, and then wait for the next update, and I'll throw in some advertisements, but the next update will come a little later. And that's the update.
And now you see again, this isn't good for him. It's not good for the CIA. It's not good for his administration. So of course he's going to comment.
Oops, I didn't turn it off properly. That was the update.
On the leaks that have been embarrassing to him from the CIA, from this.
I don't know why I can't turn this thing off.